Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. This is Parker from Test Prep Champions, and I put together a GED Math Practice quiz so you can practice some GED Math questions. So let's get started. Okay, question 1 is to simplify 12x plus 2 times x minus 5. So you're going to simplify 12x plus 2 times x minus 5. So pause the video and try to do this now. Okay, let's go over how to do this. So what I want you to see here is that we can distribute this 2. So we can distribute the 2. Now, you might be wondering, what do I mean by distribute the 2? Well, when we see that we've got 2, and then we've got this parenthesis, so we've got 2 parentheses x minus 5, then another parenthesis. What we can do is we can multiply both of the numbers inside of the parentheses by the 2. So in other words, we would do 2 times x, and then we can also do 2 times negative 5. And so since we have this minus here, since it's x minus 5, we want to make sure that we do 2 times negative 5, not 2 times 5, okay? And so let's do that. So before we do that, though, let's make sure that we bring our 12x down so we don't forget about it. So we bring down our 12x. So we have 12x plus 2 times x. So what is 2 times x? Well, 2 times x is just simply 2x. And 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. So now the last step is to combine like terms. So what do I mean by combining like terms? Well, we want to look at the numbers that have x's in them here. So this would be our 12x and our 2x here. So we can add 12x and 2x, but we can't add these to negative 10. All right, so what we can do here is do 12 plus 2. So 12 plus 2 is 14, and we have to remember to put our x here since it's 12x plus 2x. And then we just have minus 10, and so we can't do 14x minus 10, right? Because we could if it was 14x minus 10x, then the answer would just be 4x. But that's not the case here. So just keep in mind that this is our final answer here. Question 2 is to find the slope of a line passing through the following pair of points: negative 3 and 2, and 7 and 18. So pause the video and try to find the slope here. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to try this out. So what you have to know for these slope questions is that, first of all, we represent the slope with this letter m here. So m is equal to your slope. All right, and the slope is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So if you ever have to calculate the slope, you just use this formula here, y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1. So how do you know which of these numbers is which? Well, first of all, we just have to understand that we can look at the points here, right? So we've got negative 3 and 2. So let's just focus on these points right here. So in any coordinate pair, okay, which these two numbers here, this is what we call a coordinate pair. All right, the x-coordinate is always written first. So this negative 3 is an x. And the second number in a pair is always your y. So negative 3 is an x and 2 is a y. All right, and now with this pair here, 7 and 18. So is 7 an x coordinate or is 7 a y coordinate? Well, again, the first number in a coordinate pair is always an x coordinate, and the second number is always a y coordinate. So that's pretty straightforward, hopefully. All right, and so now you can pick negative 3 as x1 or as x2, whichever you want to make it. It's up to you. So since negative 3 is the first number here, I would just make it x1 just to keep it simple, and then that would make 7 your x2. All right, and so since we want to keep the 1s and 2s together, then we'd have x1 paired with y1. So we would make the 2 y1, and we would make the 18 then our y2. However, you don't have to necessarily do it that way. You could instead, if you want to, you could make negative 3 your x2, and then that would leave 7 to be your x1. And so then, since we want to always keep the 1s and 2s together, x2 is paired with y2, so this automatically becomes y2, and x1 is always paired with y1, so then 18 would be your y1. However you would like to do it. All right, so I'm just going to make this x1, and then this will be our y1, and then this would be our x2, and this would be our y2. But like I said, you could alternatively do it the other way, where you make negative 3 x2 if you would like to do it that way. All right, but this is how I'm going to set the question up, because I like to just do it when I get the first points here, right, the first coordinate pair, which is -3 and 2, I just make that x1 and y1, and then I see the second pair and I just make those x2 and y2, but it's up to you to make that decision. So now that we've got our x1, y1, and our x2, y2, we're just going to take our y2 and we're going to substitute it into the equation for, you guessed it, y2. Then we're going to take our y1, which is 2, and we'll substitute that number into our equation for y1. Now we'll take our x1, and you guessed it, we're going to plug that in for x1, and we'll take our x2, which happens to be 7, and we're going to substitute that into the equation for our x2. So again, since y2 is 18, we substitute 18 into our equation. So let me just draw an arrow down here. So our slope is equal to our y2, which is 18, minus y1. And what is our y1? Well, we can look right here. y1 is 2. So we've got 18 minus 2 divided by x2 minus x1. So what is our x2? Well, remember, our x2 is 7. And what is our x1? Well, remember, our x1 is -3. So whenever you do minus a negative number, it becomes plus. So 7 minus -3 is the same as 7 plus 3. All right, so now let's do some math here. So what's 18 minus 2? Well, 18 minus 2 is 16. 7 plus 3 is 10. So now we have 16 over 10. And so we can simplify this down if we would like to. So let's do that. So since we've got two even numbers, we can divide both the top number and the bottom number by 2. So what's 16 divided by 2? 16 divided by 2 is 8. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And we are left with 8 over 5. We can't simplify this anymore, so this is our answer. So the slope is 8 over 5. Okay, question 3. How long does it take for a car to travel 360 miles at an average speed of 65 miles per hour? Pause the video and try this out for yourself, and then we'll go over how to do it. So the key to question 3 is to use this formula here, the distance formula. D equals RT. And in the formula, D stands for distance, R stands for rate, and T stands for time here. So D equals R times T. Distance equals rate times time. And so let's plug in some values here. All right, so how long does it take for a car to travel 360 miles at an average speed of 65 miles per hour? So what is our distance here? Well, the distance is 360, right? Because we want to know when the car is going to hit 65 miles per hour. All right, and so again, what we want to find here in the question is how long. So how long, that's a question about time. How long does it take for the car to travel 360 miles per hour? So the time here is an unknown, so I'm going to put a question mark here because we don't know what our time is. So what about the rate? Well, the rate here is the speed. So it says at an average speed of 65 miles per hour. So when you see this average speed, note that the word speed is just telling us what the rate is here, okay? So if you go 65 miles per hour, you could say that's your rate, or you could say that's your speed. We're talking about the same thing here. So 65 miles per hour is the rate here. So I'm just going to put 65. So we've got D and we've got R, but we need to find T here. So when we see this equation here, D equals R times T, the equation is solved for D. And when I say it's solved for D, all I mean is that D is by itself on the left-hand side of our equation here. And so we want to find time here. So we want to solve the equation for T. All right, so before we plug any numbers in here, let's solve this equation for T. So we have D equals R times T. So how do we undo multiplication? Well, we undo multiplication by doing the opposite. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So if we have R times T and we want to get T by itself here, we do that by doing the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So we're going to divide by R. And the reason this makes sense is because R divided by R is going to cancel out here. So anything divided by itself is just going to give us 1. So any number divided by itself gives us 1. So R divided by R is 1. We'd be left with 1 times T, which is just T, so we don't even need to write that 1 there. All right, and so whatever you do to one side, you always must do it to the other too. So we divided by R on this side, we also have to divide by R on the other side. So now let me draw an arrow here, and we'll rewrite this. So we now have D divided by R equals T. And so now we've solved the equation for T, so all we have to do is plug our numbers in here. So what is our distance? Well, we know from the question that the distance is 360 miles. So we're going to substitute 360 into our equation here for D. We know that the rate or the speed is 65 miles per hour. Speed and rate, two words for the same thing here. So we take 65 and we substitute that into the equation for r. So let me rewrite this whole thing now. So again, 360 is our distance, and our rate is 65. So now you can just go in your calculator and do 360 divided by 65, and the answer here is 5.5 hours here. So the time that it's going to take to travel 360 miles going at an average speed of 65 miles per hour is about 5.5 hours. Question number 4 is to find the area of the following triangle. And so I popped on screen here because I wanted to show you why you might hear some mews or purrs coming from the microphone. It's because I've got this guy, my cat Tommy, here sitting on my lap. So if you hear any mews or purrs, just don't be alarmed. So go ahead and try to find the area of the following triangle. Pause the video, do that now, and then we'll go over how to do this. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to try this one out. Now let's go over how to do it. So this is one of the harder questions here in this video, and it's really not that hard though when we break it down. So the first thing that you have to understand is the formula for the area of the triangle. All right, so I'm going to write an A here for area, and I'm going to put a little t here for area of the triangle. So this AT represents the area of the triangle. So the formula for that, there's two ways to think about it. So you can think of it as the base of the triangle times, and this little dot means times the height of the triangle divided by 2. Or you could also think of the area of the triangle. So again, I'm going to write this A with a little t here for area of the triangle. You could also think of it as half. So as 1/2 times the base times the height. All right, so these are two ways of saying the same exact thing, just different ways of looking at it. So you can think of it again as base times height divided by 2, or you can think of it as the base times the height multiplied by half. Two ways to look at the same thing here. All right, so let me put a box around these. So whichever way you want to think about the formula here, you'll get the right answer as long as you know what the length of the base is. And so this side right here that we don't know is our base, and the side right here that is 8 is our height. Okay, so let's start listing out what we know here. So we know that the base, or we don't know what the base is. So we don't know what the base is, but we do know what the height is. So our height, or our h, let me make that lowercase h. So we know that the height is equal to 8. Okay, so in order to use this formula, we have to first find what the base is. Well, we have to find what the base is first, all right? And then we can take the base and we can substitute it into the formula for b. We can take this 8 and we're going to substitute that into the formula for our h. All right, but we need to find out what b is first. And so how do we do that? Well, hopefully you see here that this is a 90-degree triangle. And if you didn't see that yet, then that's fine. Don't worry about it. We're going to cover it right now. So this little box in the corner of a triangle tells you that you've got a right triangle. So this little box in the corner of a triangle here tells us that we've got a right triangle, and this angle here is 90 degrees. Okay, so it's 90 degrees because you can imagine the straight line that comes down here, and we've got another straight line going across here, and so they intersect and they form this 90-degree angle. So these lines are perpendicular to each other. See how this line that goes up and down and the line that goes across here, all right, they cross here and they form this 90-degree angle, which we represent with that little box type thing. All right, but all you have to remember, the most important thing here is to remember that whenever you see a triangle with this little box type thing in the corner of it, that is a 90-degree angle, and that tells you that you've got a right triangle. And when you've got a right triangle, you can apply a special formula called the Pythagorean Theorem. And so this formula here is really going to be the key to getting this question right. So the formula that you have to use before we can do the calculation for the area is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay. And so let me show you what this means. So this formula here, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, is very, very, very important to understand here. Because whenever you've got a right triangle, and again, a right triangle has this little box type thing in the corner, it's got a 90-degree angle in it. All right, so that's how you know that you've got a right triangle. So with a right triangle, we know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So in other words, if we take side A and we square it, and we take side B and we square it, and we add up the square of A and the square of B, and then we can get c squared, all right? And so now the only other thing that you have to understand here is that the biggest side of the triangle is what we call the hypotenuse. All right, that's a big word, but it just tells us that it's the biggest side of the triangle. So the side opposite from this 90-degree angle is always going to be the hypotenuse, so the biggest side of our triangle. All right, so if we look over here at our triangle, and so let me just circle the part of the problem that we really want to pay attention to right now. So right now, really pay attention to this triangle here. So we see that we've got side 8 and we've got side 10, but we don't know what this side is down here. All right, so this side 8, okay, this is our A. All right, and this side, this 10 right here, this is our side C. And the unknown side here is our side B. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we can plug this 8 into our formula for A, and we can plug the 10 into the formula for C, and we can do some calculations, and we can find out what B is. And then once we find out what B is, we're then going to go back down here into our area of the triangle formula and substitute into the equation here, and we'll finally get the area of the triangle. Okay, so this may seem complex, but if you follow along here, it's really not that bad. It just might seem like it at first if you've never looked at these kind of triangle problems before, but I can assure you that this is very important to understand. So if you're following along right now and you understand what's going on, then good for you. Great job. Give yourself an imaginary or a real pat on the back, depending on where you're at. So let's keep going with the question here. So we want to use this formula, this a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're going to take our a, and we know that a is 8, right? So we have our 8. So we've got our 8 squared plus b squared, and we don't know what that is equal to c squared. And remember that we've already established that c squared is 10, so we've got our 10 squared. Okay, so now what do we do? Well, now what we can do is we want to do the math here. So what's 8 squared? 8 squared is the same as 8 times 8. So 8 times 8 is going to give us 64. So we've now got 64. We make that look more like a 4. So we've got 64 plus b squared equals what? Well, it's equal to 100. All right, and so I'm going to clear some of these notes off of the board here. So hopefully if you wanted to get this stuff down in your notes, hopefully you got it down in your notes. And if not, you can always pause the video or rewind and make sure that you do get it. So let me try to clear this stuff out. And I'm doing this because I want to make some room for a calculation here. All right, and so like I said before, definitely rewind the video if you need to, and get the stuff in your notes if you would like to. All right, so let me take our calculation, and we're just going to move the calculation up here. Okay, so what we've just done, let me just recap where we're at here. So we did this 8 squared. So 8 squared gave us 64, and we've got 64 plus b squared, and that's equal to 100. So let me just rewrite this out here. Oops. Okay, so we've got this equal to 100. All right, and so now what we want to do is we're trying to solve the equation here for b. All right, so what we want to do is we want to subtract 64 on both sides of the equation. All right, since we've got positive 64 plus b squared, we do minus 64. All right, so 64 minus 64 gives us 0. So this side of the equation is now, so this part of the equation is cleared out, and we're just left with b squared equals 100. But it's not just equal to 100, right? Because whatever you do to one side of the equation, you always want to do that to the other side as well. So we then have to subtract from 100. So we do 64 minus 100. All right, so I'm going to draw an arrow here because we're going to move all of this work down here. So what we now have is b squared, and that is equal to 36. And so how did I get 36? Well, I got 36 because 100 minus 64 gives us 36. And you can check that in your calculator if you'd like to. So now we've got b squared. We don't have b yet. So what we need to do is take the square root of both sides. All right, so if we take the square root of both sides, we get that b is equal to 6. All right, and so to do the square root of 36, there's two things that you could do. So one, you could just remember, you could just memorize that the square root of 36 is 6. All right, but if you don't want to do that, then just know how to use that square root on your calculator. So you would put 36 under the square root, use your calculator, and you would get 6. All right, so either way, b is 6. So we now have established that b is equal to 6. So guess what we're going to do now? Well, we go back to our formula here for the area, which is area is equal to b times h divided by 2. So we now know what b is. So b is or 6. And we already know what h is. So h is 8 here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to substitute these numbers into our formula here. All right, and so we know that the area of the triangle, which is our AT, is equal to 6. And again, 6 is our b. So we've got 6 times 8, all divided by 2. All right, and so here's what you can do if you would like to. So we could do 6 divided by 2 first. So what's 6 divided by 2? 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that just leaves us with 3 times 8, and 3 times 8 is equal to 24. So the answer here is 24. All right, and this could be 24 inches squared, 24 centimeters squared. We don't know what the units are here, but it doesn't really matter because the main idea is to get to this 24. So the answer here after all this work is 24. So to get this question right, you had to understand how to use right triangles and how to use that Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side of that right triangle. Then once you had both the base and the height of that triangle, you just had to plug those numbers into the formula for the area of a triangle, and that's how we got our answer, which is 24. Okay, so question 5 has to do with inequalities. So what I want you to do is solve the following inequality. We have negative 3x minus 16 is greater than or equal to 2. So once again, solve the inequality. Negative 3x minus 16 is greater than or equal to 2. So pause the video now and try this out, and then we'll go over how to do it. Okay, so let's go over how to do this. So when people see questions like this, sometimes they get a little bit confused or a little bit stuck on what this symbol actually means here. So let me just break this down over here. So this symbol right here is the greater than symbol. And you can think about it as a mouth. Okay, so imagine this is a mouth, like a monster or an animal, and that's at least how I was taught when I was younger in school. And so these are like its little teeth here, right? And so the teeth of the mouth want to eat the bigger number here. So we would say 100 is greater than 2. All right, and so if the sign goes the other way here, we would say 2 is less than 100. All right, so those are just your basic symbols here. So we've got our greater than and less than sign. So the only difference now is when we see this little line underneath it, it means greater than or equal to. So you would just read this as greater than or equal to. So we just read this again as negative 3x minus 16 is greater than or equal to 2. All right, and so really, whenever you would solve a normal equation, you're usually going to see an equal sign like this. So what's the difference between a problem like the one that I've given you here and if we rewrite the same problem with an equal sign here? Well, you solve both of these problems the same exact way, at first at least. So the only difference though is that with inequalities, whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. So for example, this is a greater than or equal to sign, 2 sign. And so if we divide or multiply by a negative number here, we're going to have to flip this around so it becomes a less than sign, less than or equal to. We're going to keep this line underneath the same. We just change this from greater than to less than. All right, if we multiply or divide by a negative number. So I'm putting a box around this question here because if you're looking at a question like this, negative 3x minus 16 equals 2, if I gave you this question here and told you to solve for x, hopefully you would know how to do that because that's a very, very important skill to have mastered for the GED test. If not, then that's okay. I'll link to a video down below on how to learn how to solve equations, but just understand that solving equations is a really pivotal skill for the GED test for many different types of questions. And so we are going to approach this question just like we would as if there was an equal sign here. So we're going to first solve it for x. But then we have to remember that since it's not an equal sign, since it's greater than or equal to, if we end up dividing or multiplying by a negative number, we're going to have to flip that sign around, all right? And I'll show you how to do that. So here we've got negative 3x minus 16 is greater than or equal to 2. So when I say solve an equation here, what we want to do is we want to isolate the variable. So we want to find our variable. Variable is just another word for an unknown. So this x is a number. We don't know what it is, though. That's why we call it a variable. And we want to get this variable by itself on the left-hand side of our equation here. All right, so since we have negative 3x minus 16, we first have to undo that subtraction. So you undo subtraction by doing the opposite, which is addition. So we have negative 16 and we want to add 16. And so this is going to cancel out now because minus 16 plus 16 is equal to 0. So we can rewrite this now as negative 3x is greater than or equal to 2. But we have to remember to add 16 here. So it's not just 2, it's 2 plus 16. And the reason is because whatever you do to one side, you always must do it to the other here. So let me draw an arrow here because we are going to rewrite this again. So we now have negative 3x is greater than or equal to 18. So we now have negative 3x here. So you can think of this as negative 3 times x, but we would just say negative 3x. But what this really is multiplication, so that's why I put this dot here. So we have negative 3 times x. So how do we undo multiplication? Well, we do the opposite operation. So the opposite operation of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by negative 3. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 gives us positive 1. Positive 1 times x is just x, so we don't even need to write that 1. So again, whatever you do to one side, you always do to the other. So what are we going to do over here? We're going to divide by negative 3. All right, and so we have x is greater than or equal to negative 6. So is this the correct answer? Well, hopefully you realize that no, we're not quite done with the question. Since we divided by negative 3, we're going to have to flip this around. So instead of it saying x is greater than or equal to negative 6, it should read x is less than or equal to negative 6. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense here. So again, you want to approach these questions just like you would if this was an equal sign. So solve for the variable, but then just remember that if you multiplied or divided by a negative number, then you have to flip it around. So greater than or equal to becomes less than or equal to. So what this tells us is that x is some number that's less than negative 6, or it could be negative 6. Okay, so it's got to be a number that's less than or equal to negative 6. So that's in contrast. If we just had x is equal to negative 6, then we would know that the number of x is just negative 6. But we don't know exactly that it's negative 6. We know that it could be equal to negative 6 or less than negative 6. So we know that x is less than or equal to negative 6. What is the median of the following data set? So you're given numbers here in this data set, and so go ahead and use this data set to find the median. And pause the video and do that now. Okay, so let's go over how to do this. So basically, mean, median, mode, and range questions are definitely questions that you're going to want to know how to do for the test. So we're going to go over how to find the median in a data set right now, because this can be tricky. So if you want to know how to do mean, median, mode, and range, the whole entire spectrum, then check out my link in the description down below and in the pinned comment down below, because I have other videos where I cover the whole thing. But right now we're just looking at a kind of a trickier example of how to find the median. So why do I say this is tricky? Well, the reason I say that this can be tricky is because a lot of students, they remember that the word median has to do with the middle. So they think, well, I just look at the number here and I just find the number in the middle and that's going to be the answer. And that's often not the case here. All right, so the first thing you do with any median problem is you have to order the numbers from smallest to largest. So when you've got an odd number of numbers in your data set, you just order the numbers from smallest to largest, and then after that, you just look for the middle number, and then that's the median. Okay, but when you've got an even number of numbers, which we have here, so let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is an even number, so in this case, that's not going to work. So we're going to have to order these from smallest to largest. Then we look for the two numbers that are in the middle, and we add them up and divide by 2. That's how we get the median. Okay, so again, let's start off by ordering these numbers from smallest to largest. And so when you order numbers from smallest to largest, the easiest way to do it is to just think about it intuitively as if you were counting. So if you were going to count 1 up to 343, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just went all the way up to 343, the numbers that you would hit first are going to go at the beginning. So you'd hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you'd count up 17 would be next, then 22 would be next, and etc., etc. So you could think about it that way. Or you can think about it as money. So let's say you were going to play the lottery. If you had a choice between winning any of these amounts of money here, which one would you most want to win? Well, obviously 358. Would you be happier winning $358 in the lottery or $5 in the lottery? Well, obviously 358 because that's more money here. So you could think about it that way. But if you're really having trouble with ordering numbers here, then here are a few tricks. So think about it this way. So let's say that we've got 343. And let's compare that to 17. So 343, let's look at the number of digits. So 343 has 3 digits, 1, 2, and 3. 17 only has 2. So numbers with more digits are going to be larger than numbers with fewer digits, all right? Now if they have the same number of digits, then you're going to have to look at the different places. So let's say we've got 343 and 358. So they both have 3 digits here, right? So what we want to do is we want to work left to right here, and let's examine each of the different places. So this place here is the hundreds place. So this 3 in both of our numbers is in the hundreds place. All right, and so this 4 is in the tens place. All right, and in this number in 358, the 5 is in the tens place. All right, so 3 and 3 in the hundreds place is tie here, so we have to go look at the tens place. So we've got 4 versus 5. Well, 5 is a bigger number. All right, so 343 goes down, 358 is our winner, so 358 is bigger than 343. So that's just an example of how you could reason your way through a question like this if your numbers have the same number of digits in them. Okay. And so that's just a way to do it if you're having trouble just kind of looking at this and just intuitively seeing what the answer is. But I would encourage you to practice these types of questions because it saves you a lot of time if you can just kind of look at a question like this and just order the numbers very easily rather than having to kind of think about it by looking at the number of digits and lining them up and comparing them that way. You can do it that way as I was showing you how to do, but it's going to take longer. So this is how we would order these from smallest to largest. All right. And so now what we want to do is we want to pick the two numbers that are in the middle here. Okay, so if we go from left to right here, what we see here is that we've got these two numbers in the middle. We've got 22 and 230. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to add these up. So we do 22 plus 230. And so we're going to divide by 2. So since we've got two numbers that we're adding up here, we divide them by 2. And so if you put this in your calculator, you will get 126, and so that is the answer. So the median is 126. Congratulations for making it through the whole video. You're now one step closer to passing GED Math. So your next step is to go watch my GED Math practice test video, or watch my video on hard GED Math word problems, or my video on hard GED problems. Good luck with your test. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button.